There's a lot of people leaving Southeast Asia, especially from the Western world. Where are they going? Why are they leaving? Let's find out. How is Southeast changing? Do you need to know this? Sit around. Let's discuss. Jump right in, all right? Boom.
Expats are leaving Southeast Asia in 2026. Today I
Purple
wanted
shirt.
to discuss the current crisis that the region is in and how a nearby crisis has been affecting many countries throughout Southeast Asia. Also, we will discuss how you can move to a more tax-friendly region that's filled with personal freedom. The region is no longer easy mode. Southeast Asia was once a geographic location where you could live on a mid to long-term basis without having to worry about long-term residency permits, taxes, and even seeing your speech being suppressed. Now,
So that's very interesting because, the language has definitely always been a barrier. That's a huge barrier. To think that it was ever easy is something wild. Because over time, they've learned English. They've gotten better at that. But the laws are definitely changing. There's also Malaysia. It's not really a place that you can speak freely. Maybe the other countries you could for a while. But, I don't know. Something to think about.
fast forward to today, talking about the year 2026 that we're in right now, things have changed drastically. A geographic location that once used to stand for cheap living and easy visa runs has drastically shifted into a totally different perspective that many expats in 2026 don't.
Everything's all monetized and hyper monetized now, so they know the gig. Like there's certain companies, like you used to just take a bus and go do your visa runs. Now there's certain companies that facilitate this. They give you like a luxury experience. The guy running the border with you, he knows personally the guards at the border, so he's slipping them a little extra money to make it happen quicker. There's all sorts of little games and tricks that these guys are implementing now, and they know how to take advantage and maximize the dollar extraction, just like the American business people do as well. Like gas around Asia, very cheap. Even in Australia, where they're realizing that gas prices are through the roof and that they're being taken advantage of, it's still a lot cheaper than in the United States. So, they're learning how to do it the American way. They're going, how far can we push it without pissing people off? Well, maybe we've reached that threshold. Let's find out what Nomad Elite has to say.
Don't seem to find acceptable, neither comfortable for the mid to long term. Places like Thailand, Bali, and Vietnam have long been go-to places for expats.
Yeah, Bali is apparently like LA now. Good luck. Everyone is a Western business owner. You're paying the same prices as you would in Hollywood. You're getting the same experience, the same tacky indoor decor. You got to go to a lot of these other islands and places in Indonesia if that's where you're going and experience the local life. Slow down. Stop going to all these Western-owned retreats and healing centers and wellness centers where there's a bunch of gurus that know how to just extract money from you. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what they were trained to do as they ventured around and found themselves in a holy manner.
From all over the world. Given the recent spike in the cost of living throughout the entire region, we can see why expats are now choosing low-cost countries in different geographies, such as Latin America and Africa, where the money goes a lot further.
Africa's messed up, guys. Your money might go far there, but be extremely careful if you want to go to Africa. Check out Morocco, though. Totally peaceful people, very welcoming. It's a Muslim culture, but they also have a lot of Sephardic Judaism. They've got Christians there. They've got a king with a palace like Aladdin, but they've also got a bunch of street food and just people making real products. Instead of spending a bunch of money on a Louis Vuitton, take a trip over to Morocco. Find a guy that has a bunch of goat skins. You can pick one that's not like any other skin because it's like a mess up from a big batch. And they'll sew together a nice bag that's a copycat of what you had. But you can watch them make it. What a concept. Have fun in life, man. But be safe.
And where regional stability is also more granted in a lot of places. The current crisis that we're seeing in the Gulf region has had a really big effect and impact on Southeast Asia. Talking about energy and gasoline, things that are now scarce in many Southeast Asian countries. The ones
Ironically, this fuel shortage is giving fuel to the BRICS nations. You know, they really want to get off of that dollar. They all want to produce their own stuff away from American dominance. And do you blame them at this point? You know, everything's going on over there with Israel and the United States going into Iran. And yeah, free the Persian people, please. Bring peace to the Middle East. But stop bombing indiscriminately. Destroy bridges. What are you really doing? You're just making it harder on the people to rebuild and get back to life after this is all said and done. What happened to, like, strategically finding where these guys are at and taking them out one by one? You know, what happened to that? That mission seems to be on the shelf for now. I don't know. It's crazy. U.S. is just saying, buy from us because, you know, big business.
Popular concept of border hopping has also come to an end in many Southeast Asian countries where regional authorities no longer accept you leaving the country for 1 to 2 days just to return with the expectation to receive a new, fresh tourist visa. The visa hopping might still work occasionally, but it has gotten under fire in so many countries, leaving expats with no other option but to depart Southeast Asia in 2026. As a matter of
it's probably gonna like turn into like a collection. Like I wouldn't be surprised if a collection of Southeast Asia or whatever they want to call themselves, like when they come together, it's gonna be kind of like a European Union of sorts, like the Schengen region. Like you got 90 days within a 180-day period. So if you stay 90 days, like you gotta leave for 90 days, not go to another country, but like leave the whole region. Go down to Morocco for 90 days. Go to Turkey. Is Turkey part of the Schengen? I don't know. But you got to leave. And then you can come back again. Very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they want to go.
Vietnam still offers no real long-term permanent residency for retirees, entrepreneurs, digital nomads, you name it. There's really nothing in place that says, hey, if you commit so and so much to the country, you're being granted a 10, 20-year permanent residency
but good luck doing
that allows you to stay in the prosperous Southeast nation of Vietnam. So you really only have access to temporary residency permits, and only if you're married to a Vietnamese citizen or have made a significant contribution to the Vietnamese economy. If you don't meet these requirements, or you are not lucky enough to have found a job that gives you a work permit, aka temporary residency permit, you may not have any options to stay in the country for the long term. As we said, visa hopping has come to an end, and it's become more difficult to keep doing it in Vietnam. So lots of expats in 2026, they are rotating between different countries, spending a couple months in Vietnam, couple months in Thailand, Cambodia, but they don't really have the option to be living in Vietnam for several years.
Cambodia's the illest.
Like they used to. The bottom line is this.
They want you there.
Yes, you can stay, but your stay is
it's bullcrap. I see that Thailand wants you to return to your home country before allowing you back in. Yeah, they're coming up with all these new rules, like seemingly by the week, right? It's like every time, like they're just moving laws and it's just like passing shit as it goes down. Like they do not want you there. For like they want rich people there. They want like big money to come in and like pay for that visa that allows you to stay. They want retirees, you know, people that have a pension and Social Security. They're cool with that, but they don't want like backpackers. They're fine with that too because it's temporary. But they do not want you coming in there, setting up shop, getting a cheap place to rent, and just like, you know, starting your own little business off the books. They are cracking down on that though. Like, whereas Cambodia, you show up. You pay $35, not $30. $30, you can't get this extra extension. $35, get the business visa. And then you pay about $500. You get the long-term visa, and then you also get a work permit. And every year you can just renew it, which is sick. And you do that 10 times, you get citizenship. You get an extra passport. You kind of get your little James Bond, you know. Like, I got multiple passports. I got multiple country currencies. Like, yeah. Because that's a goal, right? Just, like, have ultimate freedom in this world. Like, if, like, America does some crazy shit, and, like, other countries are like, you're not allowed to come here when you're American. Well, I got a Cambodian passport. Can I come in? And, like, that's what you want. Yeah, Thailand's cracking down, dude. They're getting strange. Vietnam's getting a little weird too.
Always going to be temporary. It is not permanent. Once you realize that, it may be time to start looking at a different geography where perhaps temporary residency runs for more years, or where you have a path to convert to permanent residency. Now, if temporary and permanent residency are not frightening enough to you, because it's so difficult to obtain a long-term permit in any of these countries, I want you to consider the difficulty associated with getting citizenship.
Malaysia's not that bad. Like if you start like an Etsy shop, the average person on Etsy makes like what, $45,000 a year. That's plenty to be a digital nomad and go there and get the My Malaysian Second Home, I believe, or like the digital nomad one. If you want to get the My Malaysian Second Home, you got to spend like $250,000 on property, something like that, or even less over in Sarawak. So it's not as complicated as he says it is, but like Thailand and Vietnam, those are the two I think he's focusing on. Sure.
Citizenship. At some point in your lifetime, you will want to obtain citizenship no matter where you live.
And if you're American, Philippines is
any country for a number of years, you do want to have the option to apply for citizenship, because that is really the only path for you to remain in that country indefinitely. As long as you're just a resident, you could always get kicked out of the country. For instance, let's say you break a rule, you commit to a crime, and all of a sudden your police background check shows up a record, and with that record a country can decide to boot you if they're not happy with your performance in the country. And some of these things can be triggered by very trivial things. It's very...
Yeah, guys, what I realized, like, if you're going to Asia and you're going to stay there long term, dress like a local, just blend in, don't cause any trouble.
Clear to see why obtaining citizenship, or at the very minimum permanent residency, is so mandatory. In many Southeast Asian countries, longer stay permits require hefty deposits, fees to be paid, or just a magnificent contribution to the local economy that doesn't make it realistic for the average middle-class person to achieve such a dream. While many expats living in Southeast Asia in 2026 decide to marry a local person, some may not have this option on the table because perhaps they're already married or they don't have any intentions for getting married. So consequently, they don't have a valid path to temporary or permanent residency. Another huge reason.
Jeez, really? Just to go to Europe? So, like, you got to sign up for a visa before you even go? You can't just show up on the plane anymore? Scan your passport and walk in? That's so lame. Wow. Europe, like, that's the thing. Like, coming towards 2030, it's going to be the old European banker families, the Rothschilds, everybody over in Switzerland, right? Against... who? The American tech lords. And America's going to go through a real struggle because, you know, New York and the East Coast, it's all run by big banker families and mining families, oil families down in the South. You know, who are they going to pick with? It looks like Texas is going to become its own country again. You know, they have it written into their agreement with the United States. They can do it. Yeah, they're probably going to be checking your social media, see what you have to say about Europe, see, like, you know, what is this person all about? But dang, you got to do that ahead of time, I'm sure. Wow, good to know. Europe is changing, man. Those bankers aren't going to relinquish control willingly. That's why they have so many rules against the tech systems over there, because they've seen this battle coming for a long time. And, you know, like, what's it going to take for these tech companies to create digital currencies and say, enough with the banks? Like, we don't need the regular banks anymore. It's going to be real bad. It's going to be like AI versus old money. Good luck.
Why expats are leaving the region in 2026, meaning Southeast Asia, is because of the current conflict in the Gulf region, which affects life in Southeast Asia a lot. We just recently saw how the Philippines has to really watch its reserves, its energy reserves, because it's very much affected by the crisis. Likewise, in Thailand, we're seeing a very similar picture. Now, these Southeast Asian nations have actually very strong economies and a healthy GDP, but they're still not as diversified as countries in different geographies that don't heavily rely on the import of energy from countries that might be affected by the current conflict in 2026. So setting yourself up in a resource...
There's got to be some kind of like business program where you just have a constant, you know, background check that's being updated all the time so that you can make those spur of the moment trips. Who knows? You might be right though. 6 months every time. Yikes.
Rich country in
don't know what I
different
would be doing in
geographies in
6
South
months.
America might be one of the most intelligent decisions that you make in the 21st century. Now, let's talk more about property ownership, because that's very important if you want to establish yourself anywhere long term. In Southeast Asia, property ownership, especially land ownership, remains a massive challenge in the 21st century, and especially in 2026, where expats are seeking more rights than ever before. While you may own condominiums, you may not be allowed to own the land your house is built on, which of course makes home ownership, house ownership, practically impossible in many countries, including Thailand.
Yeah, I know Thailand, you can get married and like you still can't buy property, but your wife can, for instance. And then Cambodia, you can like have a wedding and like get married and all that, but there's technically like no marriage. You're just life partners. Like there's no divorce, nothing like that.
The Philippines and some others as well. Now, you may not be able to fully own property in some of these countries, and in many cases without local structure. Let's say you incorporate a business and you have the business own the land your house is built on. I mean, there are some complex structures available that might lead to the goal more or less, but you might not want to own the land your house is built on using such a structure for many reasons. Now, there's a reason why renting condominiums and also houses is cheaper in Southeast Asia than in other geographies across the planet, and one of the reasons is of course the restriction applied to foreign land ownership and property ownership in general, which of course leads to more expats than in most regions worldwide anyway rent properties and not buy properties. It makes a lot of sense to rent and not own property in these countries.
It's so cheap.
Now,
Like,
to
why would you buy?
bypass this dilemma, what some expats in 2026 did, and some of them will do, is of course to put the property in the name of their spouse or a local person of trust. Now, this comes with its own challenges, especially if the relationship falls apart, if you enter a difficult time, if communication breaks down, you may lose access to that property. So owning property through somebody you might not have known for a very long time, and where you might not have 100% legal protection in that country, might not be the best move in 2026. Now, while it is true that rents are up anywhere from 4 to 15% or more globally, many Southeast Asian nations are also affected by this new phenomenon of rapid rent increases. For instance, in Bangkok, rent is up anywhere from 8 to 12% year over year, which makes it a lot more expensive for the average expat to rent than just a year ago, making many want to find a different geography where rent is more affordable and where energy independence is guaranteed. Thailand now sits mid-pack in cost of living and is certainly not a bargain like it used to be. And we see a similar picture in the Philippines, where rent has gone up tremendously, and where purchasing a property, we're talking about a condominium, you look...
Yeah, like have you seen the prices of property in Cambodia? You buying property in Cambodia? What a joke. This is not happening. It's like millions of dollars for like a dirt plot. Whoever owns all of that, they own the whole country. And they only want big businesses to come in and buy it through their little scheme, whatever they have going on. But renting? No problem. You just talk to some locals, you find a nice little plot of jungle property, or maybe it's got a little something built on it already. Super cheap. So whatever's going on there is kind of backwards. But like Vietnam, you're not buying property, but you can get an apartment in Saigon for $350, furnished, no mold. It's wild. It's kind of crazy, like Motorbike City, honking constantly, polluted air, But $350, not bad. Philippines, you can buy land, but you're usually going to be in like somewhat of an HOA of sorts. They use different terminology, but like the locals will get away with building shacks, but you won't. Because that's not why you're there. That's not why they want you there. They want you to bring the property values up so those families can eventually sell for a nice price and move to another of the 7,000 islands or whatever it is, right? Yeah, interesting stuff.
Looking at immensely high prices per square meter, some double or triple the prices you're seeing in developed countries, which of course leads to more expats renting than ever before, I think. Naturally, expats starting to ask, why should I rent if I can leave Southeast Asia in 2026? This is a natural question that pops up in our heads once the cost of living has risen to a point where we're no longer comfortable paying these prices. We start asking ourselves, are there alternatives out there?
That's the cool thing too. They don't make you sign like a super long contract. Like you can take it, say like I'm taking it for a year, and like they'll totally live up to that. But like 3 months into it, say, I just want to head out. I'm gone. They have no problem with that. You're not gonna like breach a contract or anything. You know, it's totally fine.
And of course, the answer is a surrounding yes. While you might not be interested in relocating to a different Southeast Asian country in 2026, you might be interested in relocating to a low-cost country in South America, namely Paraguay, a country that is home to a territorial tax system.
Paraguay,
so
Uruguay, they got a bunch of good weed there.
Tax-free in Paraguay. Unlike many Southeast
Chile
Asian
is
countries
very nice.
that will tax your foreign-sourced income, at least if you want to do things legally and by the books, you would need to pay taxes on your foreign-sourced income as a resident of the Southeast Asian nation. It doesn't apply to all countries in Southeast Asia, but many or most in this case and in this day and age. In Paraguay's case, foreign sourced income generated from abroad, from outside its territory, is not taxable as long as you are a legal resident of Paraguay. Also, Paraguayan residency can be obtained without proving economic solvency, without buying property, without incorporating a business. You can obtain a residency permit in Paraguay for 2 years, which is renewable, or convertible to permanent residency, which is valid for 10 years. Additionally, you may qualify for Paraguayan citizenship after having lived in the country for 3 consecutive years, making Paraguay one of the most immigrant-friendly countries throughout the 21st century. With its strong...
Have the ability to work legally. The women are gorgeous. Whoa. Argentina's right there if you want to go have some fun and find like a totally different wife. Like you could live down there. It's totally visible. All right, you can see it. It's right there. Damn. I don't know, man. South America's not a bad idea, but Africa, like, please. Like, come on now.
Agricultural sector and immense energy independence. Paraguay offers not only prosperity to its citizens and residents, but also regional stability. On the downside, Paraguay is a landlocked country, doesn't have a coastline, you don't have access to the ocean in the sense that, you know, you can go to the beach and swim in the ocean. You can't do that in Paraguay. So it is landlocked, which of course might not be very attractive for you if you value the ocean, if you really need the ocean to live a happy life. However, the internet is very strong. There are many business opportunities here, and the language is much easier to learn than in Southeast Asia, where you may or may never speak the local.
He said here. I see. He left Southeast Asia. He went to Paraguay. Yeah, I see what's going on here. He's just like all these other guys are just like, come here, come hang with me. Tried to build an expat community of friends from YouTube. I don't blame him. That's pretty sick. He's funny though. He's like, I'm living in my dope little compound, bruh. We have fun.
Language. So Paraguay has its pluses, it has its cons, but overall Paraguay offers an immense amount of value if you want to live in a low-cost country with plenty of business opportunities and in a safe environment.
That's cool.
Let's talk about a different geography, namely Central America, where Panama is the country with the most tax benefits that you can get, especially when we're talking about foreign-sourced income. Like Paraguay, Panama offers a territorial tax system where you, as a resident, will not be taxed on your global income, and only locally sourced income would be taxable in Panama.
Yeah.
Now, you can obtain Panamanian residency by incorporating a business, sponsoring yourself. Another way for you to qualify for Panamanian residency is by proving a monthly income of just $1,000, which you can do through Panama's Friendly Nations Visa Program, retirement visa program, right? So if you have $1,000 in monthly income, let's say from the Veteran Association, Social Security, or a pension program, program. In fact, also an annuity program. It needs to be from a lifetime guaranteed source.
Why are people
If you
moving to
have
Costa
it,
Rica?
you may
Go to
qualify
Panama.
for
They
Panama's
use the dollar,
permanent
too.
residency program. Due to its geographic location in Central America, Panama
Very few
really
building
works
permits as well.
phenomenally well for Americans and Canadians that seek a very close gateway from their
Jungles.
home
You got some
countries,
volcanoes,
yet
right?
close proximity to keep returning home whenever need be. You may also consider Eastern Europe, a region with a very different climate and geography, where you can qualify for residency by
Sarcavella,
purchasing property
Georgia,
in countries such as Serbia,
Tbilisi.
Bosnia, or
That
Montenegro.
looks awesome.
Now, Serbia also offers an interesting
Montenegro's
residency
sick,
permit for
super cheap.
entrepreneurs. If you're interested in incorporating a business in Serbia and employing people locally, you may qualify for
Dude, Georgia
residency
looks like
by
they got
company
Kardashian
formation, which is a
women.
great way for you to
They
get
all,
into the
like,
country
dance like
and kill
this,
two birds
you
with
know?
one stone,
It's
because
pretty
you
cool.
would be
No
the
one has a
owner of a
bumper
local
'cause they're bad
corporation,
drivers.
so you would be adding value to the country, plus you would also be helping yourself by collecting a very decent residency permit in Eastern Europe. Now, there are also some interesting options in the South Pacific that very few people talk about, namely Fiji and New Caledonia, where you can become a resident by incorporating a local business, sponsoring yourself,
I
and
wouldn't want to live on
relocating your
volcanic
life to the
islands like
South
that, though.
Pacific, one of the most exciting
crazy.
regions, phenomenal regions on the planet. Now, if you're interested in
Pearl dive
departing
all day,
Southeast
like-
Asia in 2026 to find more freedom and a lower cost of living abroad, please
Good.
go to nomadelite.com and click on book a consultation. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. I really appreciate your attendance.
Thanks,
and I
Hawk.
look forward to speaking with you.
Appreciate you, dog. He's cool, Nomad Elite. I like his stuff. You know, he can be a little dry for some people, but he's just one of these knowledgeable unks. He's going to teach you some stuff. It's just throw it in there with everything else, and eventually you just have this well-rounded idea of the whole region. Like, because you want people that are going to tell you, like, don't go there anymore. You got to listen to those people because they have a lot to say. There's a lot of grifters out there online that are totally lying to you about how easy it is, how cheap it is. You know, you got to go in there with your head screwed on straight, right? Be prepared. But, like, Cambodia, he barely hinted at it. Totally a win. 1,000, 1,200 a month, you're living it. If you live with multiple people, it's even cheaper. Yeah. Electric bike from Lazada. Killing it. Grow food traded at the markets. Good times all around. You know, you got that temple energy. I feel like there's just a bunch of good people that get drawn there in this world. There's not a bunch of bullshit. And yeah, Thailand's changed. Vietnam's just weird. I don't know. Everyone goes to Vietnam and they're like, why am I here? You can go there for a vacation, have fun, like, you know, do the little trail on the bike and all that. But their language is hard to learn, and I don't know, it's cheap to live there for a reason. It's not super healthy. People talk about, like, being super healthy food. It's not, you know. I don't know. It's just like everywhere else. You gotta be conscious about what you eat. Anyways, that was good. Nice little half-hour video. Appreciate you guys coming in here, chatting it up. Let's move on to the next one. It's a good Sunday. Let's keep on reacting, huh?